What's up, guys, and welcome to Work Wednesday. Today I'm going to talk about an awesome thing that I stumbled across whilst reading my favorite morning thing, Morning Brew. I know I've talked about this many times. The link's down below. Sign up. Trust me, you will not regret it. They have the greatest content on current events and stuff that's happening, and it's real short reads, so you don't really have to do any thinking at all and reading page after page after page, unless you want to, which is what I did yesterday, because I stumbled into their deep dive section and found something very interesting. This article was written by Peter Flint, and I find this interesting because we don't think about this much as musicians, but the value of pricing and pricing in the right price point is substantial when starting up a company. So this article right here had some great stuff to say, and feel free to check it out yourself. I'm going to use part of this article to talk about what today's topic is, which is figuring out pricing for your brand and the reasons that most startups fail. So, as we dive into it, grab a cup of coffee, join me. Here we go. So as I was in the deep part of the article, I came across this, which is why 72% of attempts to monetize an innovation fail. So, how does this apply to musicians? It applies very much so. In innovation, we usually think of something like Google coming up with a new app or Tesla becoming an electric car company. And how do they monetize that, turn that into money? Musicians should think of it the same way. Our innovation is just different as far as what people perceive, but people want live music. People want to hear what you have to offer. You need to figure out a way to monetize it without failing. And this article kind of talks about those things. So I found it really interesting and I want to dive into it. So here we go. So the article starts off by talking about 4 ways that monetization fails when you're trying to make your company, when you're trying to be a professional musician or whatever. He doesn't say musician, but I'm saying that. So that's what I'm saying. Anyway, number 1 that he lists is something he calls feature shock, meaning something that's overdone. Now he cites the Amazon Fire Phone, something that had way too many features and people didn't want it. For me, to connect it to music, I would say generally this kind of a thing that fails when you're trying to sell yourself is you're offering too much in one song. You're trying to do something that he says here is a one size fits none, basically meaning it has too many features for any one person, so the person doesn't want to pay the price of it. This is a hard one to explain in the music world, but essentially think of it as it's a band that plays jazz and pop and rock and heavy metal and hip hop and reggae and polka. It's that kind of a band. You haven't gotten anybody. Like, none of us want to go see that, because even if you like one of those genres or 3 of those genres, you probably hate 2 or 3 of them. So that would be an example of feature shock. A great example of overcoming feature shock is a band like Foo Fighters. I'm not a big rocker. I don't know a ton about them, but I did just watch Dave Grohl on The Night Show last night with the Tonight Show, sorry, with The Roots and Jimmy Fallon. And he said that they just put out an album yesterday that is a dance album. They've gone through very many different sounds, but they usually do it album by album, so as they can add to their collective audience instead of subtract from it. If you give too many features at once, generally, you won't be able to get money for what you're trying to offer because it's too much for any one person to handle. I know that's a lot, and hopefully you followed me through it. Let's go to number 2. The second section of the article talks about Minivation as a reason that you fail. And what he cites as Minivation, or this is his own terms, is that you're undercharging for your product. This is something musicians do all the time. We are notorious for it. And the problem with that is it's not sustainable. So if you undercharge for something that is really good, it doesn't matter how much you pack the house. Eventually, it's just not sustainable. You can't pay the bills with it, and it's too much work for what you're making. You need to make sure you charge the value of what you're giving, and you should believe in your product a little bit more. when you're doing these things. And to pedal companies, it's the same kind of thing. People that don't charge enough because they're like, well, it might not reach the right market. You should charge what it's worth and ask around, find out what it's worth. That's a different part of this article, and it's a different topic for a different day. But anyway, moving on to number 3. The third type he talks about is something he calls hidden gems. And then he cites that hidden gems are something that go against your DNA, so you probably don't release them because you feel that you'll lose your existing business. Again, something musicians are famous for. Oftentimes, we'll write a song that's not in our style, and so we won't put that song out there for the public to hear. And that could have been the one that we're known for. Don't do that to yourself. The audience knows better. Let them decide. You won't lose your current business just because you put out one thing that maybe they don't like. If you put out 30 things that they love, you're good. Put out that one thing. They might also love it. You don't know what they know. Actually, there was a clinic with John Mayer at Berkeley when I was there, and he said that 99% of the time he would pick the song that he thought was the hit, and 99% of the time he was wrong. The audience would pick a different song. It's the same thing. Hidden gems. Put them out there. If you like it, if it sounds cool, even if it's not your style, throw it out. See what happens. Don't throw it out. Put it out there. See what happens. And the fourth and final thing that he cites in monetization failures is what he calls the undead. And that is essentially a product, think of it as a song, that doesn't solve an issue and probably shouldn't have been put out there in the first place. A product that comes back to haunt you. So, goes on, I'll just read what he says in this one. He goes on to say, they come in 2 flavors. Either they're the wrong answer for the right question, or they're an answer for a question no one cares about. And I think that that's kind of a hidden one. It's not as big for us as it is for the tech world, because if we have a flop song or a flop project that we're working on, I don't think anyone really holds it too much against us, but it has happened in the past. You think about artists who have done certain things or said certain things publicly that have flagged them for the rest of their life. I think of Sinead O'Connor, which is an interesting one because, you know, I don't want to get into it, but essentially, you know, or I think of the Dixie Chicks, who said something and their audience was mainly supporting the person that they said something against, ergo they lost a lot of their audience. So the undead that he cites here, or he calls it the undead, would be that kind of ghost that comes back to haunt you, that thing that you said, that thing that you did, that song that you put out that turned out to actually bite you in the end. So those are the 4 things that he lists as why startups aren't really able to monetize, and the majority of startups, 2 in 10 make it, which means most of the startups, most musicians, most companies that are trying to go out on their own and be their own company, right? When you're a musician, you're your own company. That's really what it is. Most of them don't make it because not necessarily of mistakes like this. There's other reasons, right? You have to have the will, the drive, all of that stuff. But these are big things as far as making money and being able to pay the bills with it. And I thought this was a really interesting article. So anyway, that was Work Wednesday. It's a deep one. I don't usually go into articles and cite stuff. So it was fun though. Let me know in the comments if you liked it or if I should just, you know, stick to the normal content of just my opinions. I like this one because it's someone else's opinion, so it doesn't make me look like such a know-it-all or whatever, you know. So anyway, have a great Work Wednesday. I'll see you tomorrow for Theory Thursday. Take care. Wait a second. The giveaway information. So, yes, I'm still doing the giveaway. The information of that is this video up above. Make sure that you comment what you were looking for between those 2 pedals. I'm going to basically have a box for Gravity Bomb and a box for Captain Hook where I have names of everybody who wanted each pedal. And if you asked for both, your name is probably going to be in there twice, or maybe I'll just pick the one that's more likely. Comment on that video if you haven't already. I'll do the drawing on Saturday morning on a live, so at 10 a.m. so East Coast time. So if you're waiting for that, We're talking East Coast time, New York time zone. 10 a.m. on Saturday, I'm doing the drawing for who is going to win each of those pedals. Different people, obviously, right? And yes, so if you haven't entered to win yet, enter to win. And there we go. Yeah. Tell a friend, subscribe, like, all those things.